Good morning, Android Studio coders. Our topic for today is button clicks. Actually, there are so many types of how to program or create button clicks in Android Studio. Uh, the purpose of this video is to introduce you to those types of button clicks. Actually, there are two major types of button clicks. The one that you create inside the onCreate method of Android Studio inside your launcher activity, or you create it as another procedure or function and you call it inside your XML, either for a button or even for image, which you put a button click event as a parameter inside its uh, onClick tag in your XML file. So in order to demonstrate this, let's head back directly to Android's Studio. So I have already my Android Studio IDE open here, and it's a basic I have my basic layout here. It's the default layout when you create a single activity from Android Studio, and I have my hello world here. Let's erase this one and put in a button here. So I drag this button, so I'm gonna make it a little larger. Okay, so I have a large button here, and I'm just gonna enlarge the text here. So I'm gonna make the text a little bit larger. So we're gonna click on view all properties, and let's go to the text size and make it I want a bigger one. Okay, I'll change this to click me. Okay, so we now have our click me button here, and let's name it. Let's put a ID here, and let's go to the ID here is, let's change this one to just a linear layout. I'm more comfortable with that, and then let's remove this unnecessary parameters. Okay, so we now have our linear layout, and I'm gonna center this one. Okay, so how are the I make the orientation vertical. Actually, we don't really need this much. I just want to make it a little bit easier for us to see. So let's put an ID here as button 1, and let's just make this one match parent. Okay, and then margin, top margin is 100 dp. Okay, so we now have and then so that it looks good, our padding, let's put a padding of 20 dp, so that it no, instead of padding it, let's use margin. Okay, so that's it. Let's increase to 200. So we now have our button here, so it says click me, but since we named it button 1, let's just make it intuitive and put the text as button 1. So we now have our button 1 button here. So before the advent of Android Studio, especially during the times of Eclipse, when the dominant IDE for programming for Android is Eclipse, the usual way of making a button clickable or do something when you click it is through inside the onCreate. Right now it still works, but there's another method now which is putting it the click function that the button calls as a parameter inside the XML as an onClick parameter. But before we go to that, let's go to the usual method of making a button clickable, which is a little bit uh, a longer method. So first, you create a button object here. So you have your button here, name it button 1. Okay, and then you import the class for the button. So you import that class, you have your button 1 here, and then inside your onCreate, you uh, you connect that with your object inside your layout. So you have your button object, or sometimes I call this a button variable. So you now have button 1, and you now declare this as a button object that is linked to a button in your layout, because sometimes you have a couple of buttons, and this button object variable should know to which button it is connected to. So you have the r.id dot button 1. So if you have button 2, you can also connect that with another button with another name. So for now, we only have one button. So you connect that to that button. If in your naming convention, I suggest that whatever the name of the button inside your XML, you also use that as the name, or whatever the ID. This is the ID of your button inside your XML file, which is your activity underscore main.xml. You also use that as the object name or variable name for the button here inside your .java file. So you will not get confused in your code. So this is the first step. So these are steps in creating a clickable button in Android Studio. So this is the first step. So this is step 1, which is to link your button object to the XML layout object. So we now have that first step done. After we have the second step, step 2 equals, we now have to make the button object clickable. Okay, so this is already step 2, and this is step 3. Actually, our first step is this one. Let's just put this inside the onCreate. Okay, the first step is this one. Okay, so this is step 1, assigning this is not assigning, this is declaring a button variable or object. Okay, so the step 3 is to make the button clickable by assigning it into an onClickListener. So we now use button 1 that set onClickListener new onClickListener. So we now the other parts of the code are automatically generated for us, so we don't have to remember them or memorize them. So we now have inside our button that set onClickListener new view that onClickListener the onClick function or procedure here. So you put the code here that you make uh, you want to make happen, or you put the code here that should be executed when the button is clicked. So for our purposes, let's just use a simple toast message, toast that make text this button 1 was clicked, and then let's make it a short toast, short, and then that show, sorry, show, so that it would be shown. So what's wrong here? It's not. Let's use get context or get application context. If this does not work, you can use get application context or get context. So we can run this now and see if this would execute or run with no errors. So it's launching our activity now, and we should be seeing our app, simple app here. So if we click button 1 here, our toast message should load. So click. So that's it. Button 1 was clicked. Button 1 was clicked, so it's working. So for example, if we have another button here, for example, let's just copy this one. Let's go inside the XML and copy this one, and let's name it button 2, and let's see how it looks here. So let's change this to button 2. So we now have our button 2, and for you to assign if we run it now, button 2 would do nothing if we click it. So we now have our button 2 here, but since we have not yet declared any object or variable for button 2, and we did not do the steps 1 to 3, sorry. If you click button 2, nothing would happen. So look, nothing happens here. So what we should do is to be able to do this again. So we copy that and create an object for button 2. And since we now have a button 2 object, you connect that with your layout through the same type of code, and r.id.button2. So choose button 2. So that's it, very simple. And since it's now connected, the object was not now connected to its corresponding layout, you now could create you could now assign an onClickListener to button 2. So set onClickListener, new onClickListener. So you now have a click listener for button 2 here. So if you put a toast message again, that would show if button 2 was clicked. Button 2 was clicked like this. So button 2 would now fire the click event that was put inside it if we click button 2. So let's see. Let's test. So we now have our button 1. If you click button 1, the toast would show again. And if button 2, you see button 2 was clicked. So button 2 now is already a clickable button. So maybe you are asking me here, on step 3, am I gonna always do this one? It seems redundant. Why not put everything in a single assignment of a set on click listener? Well, that's a good question, but I'm not gonna discuss that immediately here. But to give you an idea, the idea is to create an array which would just replace the part here with the index of the array. So by doing so, you would be able to set an on-click listener for everyone, for every of your button in a single click listener code. So, but before that, uh, let's just comment out everything here and assign an on-click listener outside of the uh, onCreate method of your activity. So the way to do that is just create something like this: public void button one click. For example, let's just name it button one click, and then don't forget to make it as a don't forget to put a view parameter here, a view object parameter. You can name it whatever you want. You can name it like that, just like this. Inside your click, you can use this one, view. You name your view object as view, or just name it v for easy coding later on. But for the meantime, let's just name it as view. Without this one, your click procedure here would not work. So let's put a toast message again. Toast that, I think we can use this here. Button one was clicked. Click. So let's make it a little bit different for, so that you can see that this is the procedure outside of the onCreate. And then you have your toast short that show. Okay, so this is easier because you don't have to go through the steps 1, 2, and 3. You go directly to this type of code here, which is almost equivalent to this one. You can even name it onClick if you want, but let's just use button click. Then copy this one and go to your XML for that button, and you put an onClick parameter inside and paste the button name of the procedure that should fire for your button click, which is this one, button one click. So if we now run our code, button one would fire up this code once clicked. Okay, so button one was clicked. So you see, this is a different code that fires because the button one was clicked was written differently, just like this. So we can also create another one for button 2 here. Just make it button 2, and button 2 was clicked. But don't forget to put this as a parameter inside your XML, or nothing would happen inside button 2. So on click, and then put button 2 click procedure there. So button 1 was clicked is okay, and then now we have button 2 was clicked. So as you can see now that you have different types of making a button clickable. All the others are all inside your onCreate, although you can put this button object declaration outside of the onCreate here. And also the other method is to create a procedure outside onCreate that would be assigned to the onClick parameters of your button inside the button's XML in your layout, just like this one. So you may be asking me again, so this is a little bit redundant coding. Why not put everyone in a single procedure button clicks and just assign here all the types of things that would happen depending on the button that would be clicked? Well, that's doable, and I'm gonna show you that in part 2 of this video. So for now, thanks for watching, and keep in touch. Subscribe to this channel so that you would be able to see the upcoming videos that I would be uploading. Thank you.